in the studio at the Opera House on Gloucester Street tonight. Poet Donald Dempsey will be there as well. He'll be reading from his collection, Jerry Sweeney's Mammy. Good morning to the two of you.
Good morning.
Good to have you here, and good to have your hats as well, Donald. A brilliant bright purple hat. No,
You could mention my earrings.
I could mention your earrings. Oh wow, yeah, they're impressive as well.
They're made by my daughter, especially for the event.
Oh, are they really? So is this the first outing today that they've had? Linda, good to have you here. How are you feeling today about reading this poetry and releasing it to the world?
I'm feeling pretty happy about the whole event because we've made it very community based, so we've got a lot of other people involved, and I think it's a celebration, should be a joyous occasion.
Who have you got involved?
Well, we've got Mike Freeman on saxophone, who happens to be my husband. We've got Martin Green, vocalist, guitarist. We've got a fantastic lineup of other poets. I won't read all the list because it's quite long. We've got Simon MacDonald as compere.
Nice.
And we've got cupcakes.
So how does it work then? Is there going to be poetry and music?
Yes, there's going to be poetry and music. Hopefully lots of slight shifts of mood and variety, because it's difficult to sit listening to poetry for too long at a time.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's talk about the new collection if we can. This Close, what's it about?
I think it's basically about carrying love through bleak and through good, basically, and pushing oneself somehow to some edge.
This is your fourth collection. Has it changed the way you work over time?
I think the way I work's changed a lot, and I'm not sure if that's because I started painting 6 years ago and it's shifted my practice completely, but nowadays I find most of my ideas come when I'm walking.
Right. What kind of things do you paint?
I paint a lot of symbols, figures, but subjective reality basically.
Right. And where do you start when it comes to a collection of poetry?
In terms of how I put them together?
Yeah, because I suppose you might write poems that don't go in the collection, but a collection is poems that I suppose have a theme or fit together.
I think they do, because I think you're somehow, each book for me is like a house where you home your new work, and they do on some level sit together. It's a subliminal thing, it's not thought out, but I think you enter a certain imaginative space, and I think that lasts for a very extended period where the poems are actually very much in conversation with each other.
Okay. You've got Donald with you as well today. It's good to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you.
Tell us how the two of you know one another.
Donald.
I was doing a launch of my Jerry Sweeney's Mammy up in London, and we had readers from the floor, and this woman stepped up and read this fantastic poem, and we thought, wow. And we went up to her and we said, that was a fantastic poem, it was even better than my poem, it was the best poem of the night. And then she said, oh, I read my book. And we got the book and read the book and we thought, double wow, whammy. And then she said, I have a collection just waiting, and we're Dempsey and Windle, we're the publishers, so we thought, triple wow, and it just kept wowing like that all the time. And we thought, yeah, so here we are, new book down in Jersey. We hadn't been to the Channel Islands ever.
Wow.
And in the last year, we've been 3 times.
Have you
2
enjoyed
sarks and here.
it? 2 socks and a jersey.
Yeah.
Have you enjoyed it?
Oh, we love the Channel Islands now. God, you can't keep us away.
How long have you been writing poetry?
Off and on. I stopped writing for about 15 years. I got injured. I stopped writing, and then I was paralysed, and then I came back, and I started writing again to be able to talk.
Do you mind if I ask what happened?
I was a school teacher, and I got hit in the eye by a stone, and got
Really?
the side of my face paralysed. So it was a long journey back into sound, into working, but I'd stopped writing for 15 years, and the blow actually said, I've got to get out again, I've got to talk, and here I am.
Do you maybe relish what you do all the more now?
All the more, because when you lose something like that, by God, do you value it when it comes back.
Yeah. Well, I want to hear a bit of each of your poetry, if that's okay. Linda, first though, if I may, does Jersey influence your work much at all?
Oh, I think so. I absolutely love the sea and the air. I think just having that moving through your bloodstream, it's very present to me. It's not that I therefore put sea in all the poems,
No.
but it's there.
If you'd read something for us, that'd be brilliant.
I will. I'm going to read you a piece called She Wears Her Slippers to the Thread. Her big toes have worn holes in the velvet. The heel seams have burst. Slip on, slip off, shrug on, shrug off, slough, scuffle, nestle, shuffle, slide into. To hide in slippers. To step stealth cushioned across the rickety. To not disturb the mice. To not disturb the birds in the nook. To not disturb the thought between mouthfuls. To not disturb the pause for the thought. To not disturb the guns in the hide. To not disturb the moon. To not disturb the deep. To not disturb the dreaming night, listing at a sudden angle.
Wow, Linda Rose Parks, thank you.
The way she tells them.
Yeah, the way she tells them, definitely. She wears her slippers to a thread. Brilliant. I love the sounds. The sounds flow so nicely in there.
Thank you.
Donald,
Yep.
would you share a poem
This is
with
the
us?
title poem of the book. It's called Jerry Sweeney's Mammy. You'll have to understand that I was born at an extremely young age. And when I reached the great age of 5, I knew nothing about nothing. And I was under the delusion that a chap could have 3 mammies, because I had my own lovely mother Rita, I had Mrs. Sweeney down the road, my Aunt Mary down in Cork. And this was not a biological definition, this was an emotional definition. I thought anybody that loved you to that great degree was a mammy. And even by that definition, my dad was the best mammy I ever had. So this is called Jerry Sweeney's Mammy. Mrs. Sweeney was Jerry Sweeney's mammy. And even though I had my own, I had her on loan. It was like having a spare mammy. And even when she was mad with us, she just couldn't be mad with us. Go on, she agreed, go on. You'd wear the heart out of a stone. And if you fell and you were crying, heart and knee badly grazed or badly bitten by a bee, she would hug you up with all of herself. Ah, come here to me, you poor little dote. Wrap you up in so much love, it would last for years. For years. Jerry Sweeney was my best friend ever, way back in the way back then. Still is, nothing's changed, except as young fellas have become old fellas, who still think they're young fellas. And every time I see him, I could almost cry. I can still see his mammy smiling out of his eyes.
Brilliant. I think both of you performed the poem so well as well. I can see you really getting into it. How big a thing is delivery? How important is delivery when you've got a room full of people?
I'm highly dyslexic, so all my way was hearing people talk to me. Some things I never saw for 40 years. One poem is my sister's breath on my cheek, blowing my curls and telling me when I'm 7. And I don't see that poem in a book until 40 years later. So it's verbal, it's verbal.
Yeah.
Poetry's a verbal or oral experience for me.
I think the bottom line is the audience has to be able to hear what you're reading. And that sounds so fundamental, but the number of times I've been at readings where actually it's a real struggle to hear. And I think the other end of the spectrum, I don't like too much pressure being put on people to perform.
Yes.
Because some people don't feel comfortable with that at all. So we need to be able to be who we are, but we need to make sure we're projecting our voices.
Thanks ever so much for coming in today to see us. Really appreciate it. If people want to come and see you tonight, 511115, the box office number for the Jersey Opera House, and they can see the launch of your 4th collection this close.
Thank you.
Linda, good to see you. Linda Rose Parks, award-winning Jersey poet, and also Donald Dempsey. You can catch them tonight in the studio of the Jersey Opera House. It's BBC Radio Jersey. It's Friday morning.